is a CTV News special presentation.
I have my own dream, and I'm trying to contribute and help other people in my own way.
Hansen was 15 when an auto accident left him paralyzed.
Rick Hansen, Canadian icon and accessibility activist.
Rick Hansen has already raised $1.2 million for spinal cord research and the disabled.
Philanthropist, most famous for his Man in Motion tour.
And I'm prepared to give it everything I've got. Our project stands for striving for the best we can do.
34 countries, 26 months, raising $26 million.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be ups and downs.
He's had numerous bouts of tendonitis, shoulders, elbows, wrists, neck.
Gives you some inspiration to go on.
50 years after the accident that left him paralyzed, Rick Hansen, Unbreakable with Sandie Rinaldo.
We are here in Williams Lake, British Columbia because Rick Hansen asked us to join him on a journey back in time to the place where 50 years ago, on June the 27th, 1973, when he was 15 years old, almost 16, he was involved in a truck accident that paralyzed him from the waist on down and changed his life forever.
And it's like this for up and down for almost 3 hours till you get to around Clean, and then you get up against the foothills of the coastal mountain range.
Williams Lake is where Rick Hansen grew up. His family moved here when he was young. Rick was athletic, playing volleyball, basketball. He loved the outdoors, would go fishing with his dad and his friends, including his buddy, Don Alder. It was during one of those fishing trips in the summer of 1973 that Rick made a fateful decision, disobeying his mom's warning, whatever you do, don't hitchhike home. But Rick and his buddy Don hitched a ride on the back of a pickup truck with a driver and his girlfriend. As it rounded a corner, the driver lost control. Rick told me he's driven by the accident site several times over the past 50 years.
That's where it all changed, eh?
Driven past but never stopped until today. You know, I'm supposed to be dispassionate as a journalist, but I'm more anxious about how this day is for you than I thought I'd ever be.
Boy, it's mixed emotions, that's for sure. Powerful moment. We weren't going all that fast, and then literally we started fishtailing, and because I'd switched sides with Dawn, I was now about to become trapped on the inside of the roll. And I guess this is about where, you know, I ended up getting deposited as it rolled, and Dawn jumped free and rolled just ahead of the truck, and then the truck like crashed me to the ground, and then it kept rolling over top of me, and then it settled back by that pole, and I was down here covered in debris, and I must have lost consciousness for a minute or two, and then I woke up and I thought, oh, I'm alive, I can't believe it, because I was just like thinking for sure that this would be the end. I was against a steel toolbox, and pushing the debris and trying to get up, and it wasn't working, and I realized, hey, my legs just aren't working. Wasn't at my best. I was pretty angry at the driver, and and just I couldn't believe that he had done that, and I was just struggling. But it was so bizarre how deep down inside it was this sense of I'm in real trouble.
He was mad at his friend Don for asking him to switch seats, and also mad at himself for not listening to his mother for hitchhiking.
Coming back here, it's overwhelming because, you remember how brutal it was.
Brutal for sure. It took the ambulance an hour to get there, and then a 200-kilometer drive to the nearest hospital where the doctor gave him the devastating news.
Just said, you've broken your back, your vertebrae's been shattered as it came up against the toolbox. The spinal cord was stretched and compressed, and that trauma has created a very significant injury, and you're unlikely to ever recover.
But with no air ambulance at Williams Lake, Rick had to be driven to another hospital 8 hours away.
The orthopedic surgeon was not available, he was on holiday, and so it took him a couple more days to get in and then to operate.
So how many days from the point of injury until you were in the operating room?
Yeah, I'm guessing it was maybe 2 days, maybe 3.
Doctors fused Rick's spinal column, and then he was strapped to a bed, immobilized, unable to move, alternating face up, face down. For the athletic and active 15-year-old, the recovery process was brutal. But instead of being discouraged, Rick did something remarkable.
And then I started to think, gosh, there's got to be something that I can focus on. And it was rubber bands, tie them to the side of the bed, start working my arms. My goal was to sit up in a normal bed for my 16th birthday. And so that's what happened. I sat up for the 16th birthday, and it was a huge moment for me.
After 4 months in hospital and 3 months in rehabilitation, it was time to go home and begin rebuilding his life.
All right, what's next? What's next? Get out of that bed, look at the wheelchair if that's the way it's going to be, and figure it out.
Coming up, the bumpy road ahead for Rick Hansen.
He was a wreck, and I thought, oh my goodness, how are we going to recover from this? And it was literally that his body started to shut down.
June 27, 1973, a life-changing day for 15-year-old Rick Hansen. An accident that leaves him paralyzed from the waist down. It would be a 7-month recovery, including surgery, before Rick could go home.
When I first came back after my accident and came back home to Williams Lake, I started learning about what life was possible. Like, for instance, what could I do? Well, I could actually still go out to the outdoors and, fish and be with my brother.
And going home meant physiotherapy and accepting the fact that he needed help to do the things that able-bodied people take for granted. Rick was bitter, still angry. He didn't want to be a burden on others, and that was tough for him. There was a learning curve.
You know, I've learned, of course, that success in life isn't about whether I can walk around and use my legs. It's about my heart. It's about, passion.
Nothing was going to stop Rick Hansen. He was determined, single-minded, focused. His brother and dad got him back outdoors and active. At the encouragement of his volleyball coach, Rick began taking part in accessible sports. In 1975, he was recruited by manager Stan Strong to play for the Vancouver Cable Cars, the city's wheelchair basketball team. Stan would prove to be a huge influence on Rick, as would a young man by the name of Terry Fox. Rick recruited him for the team, and the two became good friends. Rick also began competing in wheelchair marathons. Along the way, Rick fought to be accepted into UBC's phys ed program, later becoming its first disabled graduate. But Rick, how do you get to that point?
Yeah.
Some people might just curl up in a ball and say, that's it.
Yeah, There's no question that's the first instinct when you're in a situation like that. You're overwhelmed, you're in shock, you're in disbelief, and you have this big, dark canvas of despair, right? You have no reference points. And the first thing that you need in those early days is some level of okay, it's got to get better.
And it did get better.
Rick Hansen has won international wheelchair marathons from Honolulu to Boston and every major event between.
Between 1979 and 1985, Rick won 19 wheelchair marathons, 3 world titles, and 15 medals, 6 at the Paralympic Games and 9 at the Para-Pan Am Games. In 1983, he shared the Lou Marsh Trophy with Wayne Gretzky as Canada's outstanding athlete. Rick Hansen seemed unstoppable, constantly pushing the limits. There were bad crashes like this one at the Toronto Marathon, and then, in 1983, while training for the Boston Marathon, another one, but worse.
We lost control and lost it. We went over, got my arm up in a vulnerable position going about 30 miles an hour, and it popped, it popped the shoulder out and dislocated the left shoulder completely.
Instead of heading to the Boston Marathon, he would be headed to Vancouver and the same rehab center where he spent months after his original accident in 1973. So you came here not long after the accident 50 years ago.
That's right, yeah. 4 months in the hospital, and then I was discharged to the rehab center, and it was quite the experience for sure.
You liked it so much that you came back 11 years later after you injured your shoulder, right?
Yeah, crashed, dislocated my shoulder, and the doctor knew that I had to come back to the rehab center to be treated because I couldn't move other than one arm. And so they admitted me again, and then he introduced me to my physio who was going to treat my shoulder.
That meeting with physiotherapist Amanda Reed was a pivotal moment in Rick's life.
In the world of spinal cord injury in BC particularly, he was a legend.
So you met him,
I met
and
him.
what did you think?
I thought he was cocky. I think he kind of thought he could tell me what he needed and what he wanted to do. I think immediately I felt, I needed to kind of get him by the reins and go, okay, this is what we're going to do. Right. I get that you're impatient, that you've got things to do, places to go, but you've had a serious injury and you're going to have to be careful.
Rick Hansen was impressed. He knew he'd met his match.
The doctors told me I would never be able to race again, and she really didn't listen to the doctor's limitations, and she said, okay, let's go. One step at a time, but let's see, I think we can get you back in time to qualify for the Olympic Games in Los Angeles and the Paralympics.
And was there a push-pull, or did
There was.
There was.
There was, yeah.
Because he already had an idea of what he needed, and so you really had to prove.
Yeah, so he was very agitated that he needed to get back training. This was a real inconvenience. Let's speed this up.
And then within 8 weeks, I was there. I was back.
Wow.
I was there. I ended up winning that World Championship Paralympic gold medal in the marathon, and all I could think about was that Amanda, my coach, they they believed in me and helped me get to that place.
He's a big picture dreamer. So, given, left to his own devices, he could get off and head down a road and make it all happen.
One of those big ideas was inspired by friend Terry Fox and his Marathon of Hope.
Rick started to mention about the world tour that he wanted to.
The Man in Motion tour.
Yes, he wanted to wheel around the world, and he had a vision, and it was going to be he and his buddies in a motorhome.
The vision, the Man in Motion tour, the grand plan to raise awareness of the potential of those with disabilities and find a cure for spinal cord paralysis. So, on March 21st, 1985, the tour was launched.
Every day for the next year and a half, wheelchair athlete Rick Hansen and a few of his friends are planning to head on down the road. 70 miles a day, a total of 25,000 miles, once around the world through 34 countries, including the Soviet Union.
They rolled out of Vancouver with crowds and cameras.
Terry Fox's mother, Betty, wished Hansen well and gave him a kiss.
And right from the start, there were challenges. When their motorhome hit the roof of a bridge, their only spare wheelchair was damaged. Rick and his buddies were not off to a great start.
The days were long, and the days were hard, and the days were complicated.
So Amanda would join Rick on tour.
And he got injured right away. Right at the beginning, he got injured. We're, tired. We're feeling pressure. And, Rick is feeling the most pressure, and he has to vent and let that off.
There were blow-ups, disagreements, more injuries.
He was a wreck, and I thought, oh my goodness, how are we going to recover from this? And it was literally that his body started to shut down because it needed to heal itself.
They kept chugging along across the US, through England, Europe, the Scandinavian countries, the Soviet Union, China. At every stop, raising money for research and raising awareness. It was spectacular.
Our project stands for striving for the best we can do.
Rick was always sort of fearful that he wouldn't be able to get the message out. In certain countries, we had great success. Portugal, China was incredible, and that was definitely a highlight unto itself, but it was also very intense.
By summer of 1986, Rick was back in North America.
Despite the cool temperatures and drizzle, the crowd warmed to Hansen and treated him to hospitality that's unique to Newfoundland.
And then just to see the people and
the response.
The response and the media coverage, and it just sort of, wow, okay, they have been listening.
There was also an emotional winter stopover in Thunder Bay, where friend Terry Fox had ended his Marathon of Hope.
He had inspired me to do this journey, and more importantly, of course, he was a friend, and he is a friend.
And after crossing the country in the dead of winter, Rick was back in BC.
It was a hugging and kissing kind of homecoming. First the BC Premier and then Hansen's mother. They haven't seen each other for 2 years.
The toughest terrain of the tour is still to come, but Hansen is on a high. He's home.
And a star-studded welcome at Vancouver's BC Place.
50,000 people came to the Dome Stadium to thank Rick Hansen. There was a red carpet and an honor guard of Canada's best wheelchair athletes.
The tour was an unmitigated success. Rick Hansen was a hero and a changed man.
When we come back, inspired by Rick Hansen, the changes and the advances in spinal cord research.
When you get to ask them the big question with something like an injury like this.
And the question is,
will I ever walk again?
Man in Motion, an astonishing 26-month tour to fund spinal cord research, raising $26 million. Rick's legacy, a foundation he created, that's gone on to generate almost $400 million. Rick Hansen also wanted the world to see, given the opportunity, the future is unlimited for people with disabilities. So much has changed treatment-wise in the 50 years since Rick Hansen was injured in an accident. Now remember, Rick didn't have surgery until 72 hours after he was thrown from a truck, and he spent weeks lying immobilized in a hospital bed. Today, there's a whole area of early care management. Get the injured into surgery within 24 hours and then up and moving again. Just ask Philippe Devas. Toronto's Philippe Devas remembers the panic he felt right after he was seriously injured on February 24, 2020. Tell me about the Philippe before the accident.
Well, I was adventuresome. I was and still am a father and a husband. And my passion from when I was little up until that day was motorcycling.
That was your passion?
Huge passion.
On that February day, Philippe was in Whistler, snow biking with friends, and had taken a run on some soft snow. It felt great. He handed a buddy his cell phone and asked him to record a second jump.
So I gave him the camera and took another pass and went off and landed it fine, but landed a little hard. And instantly I sort of felt a snap or a crack in my back and lost sensation below the waist. And very quickly I thought to myself, I think I'm paralyzed.
That quickly?
That quickly, yeah. Then the riding buddies came and I told them, I said, I don't try to move me. I think I have a spinal injury. And then I said, I think you need to call for help. But every time somebody tried to get me to move my legs, that's when I rose near to panic. That's when it really confronted the seriousness of what I was probably facing.
Okay, and luck was on your side because you had a satellite phone.
We all had radios, VHF radios to radio each other, plus a satellite communicator that goes straight to a central service that will, if you hit the button, it'll send the cavalry. And thankfully, in that part of BC, there's an excellent volunteer search and rescue system. And they came, and luckily we were just in a meadow, so the helicopter was able to land almost on top of me and was there in under an hour.
Philippe was transferred to the hospital in Whistler, where doctors confirmed what he suspected.
They told me that my back was broken, it was serious, and I was gonna have to go to Vancouver General Hospital immediately.
Okay, so the time that elapsed between injury and surgery at Vancouver General?
18 hours, maybe less.
So within 18 hours of injury, you were in an operating room.
Yes.
And doctors were operating on your...
Not just doctors, one of the best spinal surgeries in the world was operating on me.
Dr. Kwan.
Dr. Brian Kwan.
Philippe, where did he experience?
So his occurred right here at the 12th thoracic level, which is a very common area for people to suffer injuries because when they have a fall, for example, a lot of the force gets concentrated right at this junction. And the spinal cord actually comes and ends near that area.
Dr. Brian Kwan is an orthopedic surgeon with a specialty in spinal cord injuries. His lab at Vancouver General's Blouson Center was funded in part by the Rick Hansen Foundation. Dr. Kwan was there when Philippe was brought in. He sustained a pretty severe injury.
The disappointing thing upon meeting Philippe was that he had complete paralysis of his legs with no ability to move at all. So a pretty severe injury. We rushed him to the operating room. We got his spine decompressed and we got it stabilized.
Stabilized, but the news wasn't good. So the morning after surgery, you wake up in your hospital bed.
The nurses and the other healthcare professionals, they're kind of holding their information at bay until you get to talk to the surgeon. And that's when you get to ask them the big question with something like an injury like this.
And the question is?
Will I ever walk again? He was very clear. He said, probably not. He said, I wouldn't bet on it.
What happened after he left the room, or what happened in the hours following that encounter with the doctor?
Lots of thoughts going through your mind. You start to see parts of your life just fade out or disappear. just simple things I do with my family, camping every year, hiking, gone. My wife got our family into paddleboarding, stand-up paddleboarding, gone. My kids were still young enough to pick up and lift over my head at that age, and I thought, well, that's maybe gone.
Philippe was transferred from Vancouver back home to a Toronto hospital and then to the Lyndhurst Centre, a world-renowned spinal cord rehabilitation facility. Once you got to Lyndhurst, what was your regimen like? What did they have you do?
We work on trying to find muscles that are working a little bit and activating them. When you have an injury like this, those muscles don't fire on their own. They have to if you can fire them, you have to fire them intentionally. And that takes some effort to kind of get the noisy signal, the signal from your brain through the damage in the spinal cord, which causes kind of static to it, down to your areas that might work again. So hitting that gym as many times as possible, and then every day a physiotherapy session with a specialized physiotherapist.
Day after day, working hard, Philippe was determined to beat the odds, to defy the expectation he'd never walk again. And then, remarkably, 3 months after his injury, April 3rd, right? You're in physio.
Yeah.
They bring you to the bars and said, try to walk. They said to you.
Yeah, she said stand up, and we had done some standing before with arm supports, and I thought, okay, we're just doing this now. And then she said, move your leg, put your weight on one leg and move the other leg forward, and do it again. And do it again. And I got to the end of it and I said, is this it? Does this mean I can walk out of here? And for the first time someone said, yeah, we think so. And that was like fireworks going off. That was like a rebirth.
A champagne moment, I heard you called it.
I took a video of the second passage because I thought this is an important moment, and I set a little camera up and caught some video of me doing it again, and we did it the third time, and then that was all I had in me. And then I sent that around to everybody I know and love, and quietly celebrated with the nurses. The hospital was full of other spinal cord patients who probably weren't going to get that function back. That I was a rarity in that world, and so I kept it pretty quiet.
So 3 months from injury to that first step, there would be more steps and more progress until the day when Philippe walked out of Lyndhurst Rehabilitation Facility and into the arms of his family.
You're standing up.
Come in gentle. I know, I am standing up, kiddo.
That's it.
Philippe is now in the hands of physiotherapist Daryl Tracy to see just how far they can take his recovery. When you saw Philippe for the first time, what did you think?
You would see that he could walk, he could do most basic function, but he still wasn't at a place where he could work or function, say, fluidly.
So what kinds of things would you do that would challenge him?
We had him on the treadmill, which will help the kind of harmonious stepping and then therefore influence the spinal cord, the reflexive nature of the spinal cord. Worked on the trampoline on that kind of more shock absorbent action of a muscle as opposed to just the kind of shortening and lengthening of the muscles.
And you see changes happening as a result of all of this.
Yeah. I mean, today he actually ran the best I've ever seen him run. He ran with much longer strides, and both he and I were like, oh, okay, this is good.
Major improvement.
Yeah.
I'll do high shots.
Get in. I'll do it better than I thought. You're going in that now?
So much better than he thought after he was told the news he'd never walk again. Never be able to do this with his kids. So where are you today? How are you today? What can you do?
I can do most of the things I did before, maybe not quite as well. I can walk quite well, but a brisk walking pace and a slow jog, that is flat out for me. You know, I got most of the things back. I'm incredibly grateful. And, you know, what I don't have back, I'm learning to live without.
You said you're a rarity. Why do you think you were able to walk where so many others have not been able to?
It's come such a long way since Rick Hansen was injured in those years. I also was very lucky. I got off the mountain in less than an hour. I got into surgery in less than 24 hours. I got one of the top spinal surgeons in the world. It's his work, it's the works of the physiotherapists, and the work of people who built all that knowledge, people like Rick Hansen and other researchers and other research supporters who've allowed these advancements to happen.
Rick was just instrumental at bringing the discussion about spinal cord injuries to the forefront and really championing this idea that if we really focus our efforts on this, we can make a difference.
So what's a percentage of Philippe's who are able to walk versus those who don't walk again?
It is still, I think, a rare event for somebody to have such a severe injury such as Philippe's that will end up returning to being able to walk pretty normally. We're striving to see that, not just in the small percentage, but let's make that the expected outcome.
I think that you can trace my recovery through my surgeon back to Rick Hansen and the support that Rick Hansen's foundation provided to Dr. Kwan.
Well, we've, let's see, 3 screw-ups so far?
I've just got to move this up a little.
We're okay. That's good, that's good. Sheets are good. All right.
Looking good?
We are sailing.
We are.
His research and his work and allowed him to become the world-renowned spinal cord surgeon and researcher that he is.
So apart from being lucky, you were lucky.
I was incredibly lucky.
When we return, a big secret revealed.
That was one of the luckiest moments of my life.
This is the GF Strong Center in Vancouver. It's where 50 years ago, after his accident at Williams Lake, Rick Hansen came for physical rehabilitation. It's where he would return 11 years later because of an injury he sustained to his shoulder. And it is here that something pivotal happened that would change his life forever. So you came into this area and?
Yeah, the doctor, brought me along and Amanda popped out right here and greeted me, and wow, that was one of the luckiest moments of my life. She treated my shoulder and then she's treated my heart.
Remember Amanda Reed? She was Rick's physiotherapist. Well, she became so much more to him. Rick will say it was love at first sight. Amanda's version, slightly different. So at that point, did you sense the chemistry between you, or was that more you than Amanda?
Yeah, I was like, pretty smitten. There's no question. And yeah, we developed a pretty easy rapport. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting you should say that, because I think Amanda gave us a bit of a different description of that first meeting. Easy rapport between you. Tell him what you told us.
Well, I mean, you asked me what I thought when I first met him. You were cocky and a bit self-assured, and
that was all projection.
There you go.
Yeah, but I was. Yeah, I think I was. Like, yeah.
You had a swagger.
Maybe I did.
Yeah.
It was the beginning of a love story that blossomed during his time in rehabilitation and endures until this day, almost 4 decades later. When did you know you were in love with her?
Oh, I knew I was in love with Amanda, like probably a couple of months after I'd been discharged. And so, yeah, by the time I left on the tour, I knew that I was in love with her.
They kept their relationship secret during most of the Man in Motion tour. The 26-month journey around the world would put Rick Hansen on the map and solidify his relationship with Amanda Reed. But there were a few bumps along the way.
I believe if Amanda wasn't there, I probably would have self-destructed. I may have just inadvertently pulled the team apart or blew it apart through that frustration. And Amanda created a tremendous buffer, a liaison, and she was able to have tough conversations with me.
So she could say the things to you that other people couldn't.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Amanda was really the glue to help me work my way through that.
Love would prevail. Months went by, and then Rick made his move. What made you decide to propose?
I didn't want to wait until I got home. I didn't know what the future was at that point. I just knew that in this moment, I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Amanda.
We show the Hansens, a report that ran on CTV News in Atlantic Canada after the proposal. Now, it's the first time the two have seen it.
Personally and professionally, and our relationship was forged in the heat of battle. We came to know each other very intimately.
It's been a lot of hard work, a lot of long days. You learn the most about somebody, the good, the bad, everything. You can't really hide from anything. So it's a good chance to weather storms and to get to know each other.
Wow.
Oh,
So
gosh.
first thoughts?
We were just so young and bright-eyed. And
You still had that Ottawa accent.
oh, no, my goodness.
I'm glad that I proposed to you before you came to your senses at the end of the tour.
People grow apart. They become different people. So what is it about the two of you?
I think because we've been through so much together, when you're faced with the tough times, when you know what works, you know how to get through them, you know how to support each other, or you know how to give each other space. I mean, you learn this along the way. And I think too, our family, our girls and our grandchildren are obviously our top priorities.
It's the most special moment of my entire life. This is forever, and it's wonderful. I'm very lucky.
What is it about Amanda that has held this marriage strong, made it strong?
I trust her immensely, and I respect her, and I love her deeply, and she's been one of the most influential people in my life. Probably the most influential person in my life.
She told us there was a side to you that a lot of people don't see, and that is the sensitive side. Is it that it's something that's personal that you don't let a lot of people see, or are we pushing the right buttons here today?
You're definitely pushing the right buttons. You never know, might get a date.
It'd be really good if we could. Again,
but
who knows?
Somebody had told me a couple of years after my injury that I'd be having this incredible life with this amazing woman and having this awesome family. I would have never believed it, and yet here I am.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am.
And I think she still likes you.
Most times.
Coming up next, lessons learned.
I just had to forgive myself, my body, Don, the driver, and it happened. Nobody tried to make this happen.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rick Hansen. British Columbia native Rick Hansen set out on a journey to raise awareness about the potential of people with disabilities and to prove to the world that anything is possible if you just have the courage to try.
And Rick Hansen had the courage to try. He once said that you can't control what happens in life, but you still have a choice. The choice to move on and forgive after the accident that took away the use of his legs.
I just had to forgive myself, my body, Don, the driver, and it happened. Nobody tried to make this happen. It was just some weird, fateful moment in time, and I can't change that. But what I can do is change how I react to it and what I do with it, and that's the biggest lesson of my journey.
His friend Don Alder is still very much a part of his life today. He even joined him on the Man in Motion tour. It was Don who suggested they switch seats in the back of the truck before it lost control on that June day 50 years ago.
Coming back here, it's overwhelming because, you remember how brutal it was. But on top of that, I have this sense of joy, this gratitude, and it's so weird. How can you do that? It's because back then I was sold my soul for the use of my legs and wanted it all back. Everything was wrong. And now I'd do it all over again. Wouldn't trade it. The life, the journey.
Have hope. Try harder. Dig deeper. Anything is possible.
Do it all over again. The competitions, Man in Motion, the goal of raising awareness, raising money for spinal cord research so others like Philippe Devas can walk again. And finally, making change where change is so badly needed. What has to change now?
The first thing is, if we want people with disabilities to be included, then the buildings, the built environment, the places and spaces that people live, work, learn, and play have to be accessible and inclusive for everyone.
I can hear the passion in your voice. What drives you these days?
What drives me every single day is how is it that I can fulfill what I tried to start all those years ago, which is to try to start some kind of movement. The world was big, inaccessible, disconnected, and so what constitutes truly a movement where the world can come together and actually accelerate change? Not one man in motion, but solutions where we have the same language, the same product, and we can actually say, yeah, I can do that.
Some people might have gone through what you did and thought, there's no future, I have no future. You have a family, you have a big family, you have children, you have a wife, you have grandchildren. Did you ever think at any point along this journey that that would not be yours?
I was told in the rehab process not to set my sights too high so I wouldn't be disappointed. I was very fortunate that I didn't listen to that. How could I have ever imagined, after being told that this could be possible? Just one step at a time, one day at a time, hope.
I'm going to ask a number of people to describe Rick Hansen.
Well, good luck.
Rick Hansen.
Rick Hansen.
Rick Hansen.
Rick Hansen.
Rick Hansen has always been a fierce advocate for persons with disabilities. Everybody across Canada and around the world sees you as an inspiration.
His courage, his conviction, and his belief.
He exemplifies what human beings are capable of doing under the most adverse circumstances.
Richard Marvin Hansen, you have been an inspiration and a Canadian hero your entire life.
Which word best describes Rick Hansen? I would say optimist. What would you say?
Me, as a person, yeah. Determined.